Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of, as promised, a series on understanding stack and tilt much better. So what I'm going to talk about in this series is a lot about the origins of stack and tilt and busting a few myths about the system as well and why the system is so amazing. It is. To begin with, I want to talk about how it began with Andy Plummer and Mike Bennett in America. And I think they really did a lot of research into the golf swing, more out of necessity because they were struggling players themselves. And their work with Mac O'Grady as well as Homer Kelly's The Golfing Machine brought them to a greater understanding of how the human body works, how the spine works, and then built a system around that. So this system, I think, really gained prominence in 2005. It started with them working with players like Aaron Baddeley and Mike Weir, and Aaron Baddeley, being one of the more notable pros during his time with Stack and Tilt, actually went out to earn more than $7 million on the PGA Tour. So why is a system important? Why is it important to have a system of teaching? It's like being a doctor or maybe even being a postal worker. If you want to segregate all the mail that comes in and you have the PIN codes, you know how to do that and it's systematic. Similarly, with a doctor, you have a system of diagnosing a problem. You go through these various checkpoints. If you're flying a plane, you go through various checkpoints before you take off. So that's what a system of coaching actually does, and that's where Stack and Tilt as a system has been absolutely brilliant. So it is adaptive. It's not that every Stack and Tilt player will swing the same way. But what we can do is, through the tools of diagnosis that the system provides you with, is put in that particular piece that will enhance that player's game, be it in any one of the three fundamentals that we just spoke about. The system, the Stack and Tilt system, really works on three fundamentals. They are low point control, power, and curvature control. Now, we talk about the fundamentals of the golf swing, and we have talked about it. And if you ask players today, they talk about the grip, the setup, the ball position, maybe alignment. But those are not really fundamentals because everybody has a different grip, everybody has a different ball position, everybody has a different method of aligning. So those can't be really fundamentals. I would call them, and the system calls them, variables. So the three fundamentals: low point control, which is a good strike on the ball or striking the ball first; power, which is essential for any player to enjoy his golf; and curvature control. If any player possesses these three, they're good enough to play at any level that they choose to, depending on the amount of practice that they put in. So one of the first things that we must talk about with the system is how the spine moves. And a lot of times that's misunderstood. So let's talk about the backswing, the downswing, and how the spine moves and all of through the action. So the spine has a few different movements. You have flexion and extension, right? You have side tilting and you have rotation. Now when you make a swing, your spine is going through all these different motions, and this is where sometimes a breakdown can affect what the player is doing in his swing. So for example, in the backswing, I have to go into extension, I have to turn, and I have to go into left side flexion. And that to me is a good backswing. And that helps you swing around a very stable hub. If I were to stay in flexion, notice what happens to my head. It starts to translate to the right. And that's the number one reason why a lot of players, club golfers and amateurs, have a problem finding the ball at the same point every time. That leads to mishits, duffs, thin shots. Here's something interesting. Let's talk about the spine movements and the backswing and how it relates to the weight location. If you were to start with your weight evenly distributed between your feet, and you actually went into a good backswing position with extension, turn and side tilt, you will notice that actually 10% of your weight actually shifts onto the lead side. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't know because we've always been taught to shift the weight to the right side, but in actuality the weight does not shift to the right. It actually stays and probably moves a little bit more onto the left, and this is very, very critical in being able to maintain your low point. But that has been always spoken about as a bad thing, that if I get my weight on my lead side, it's a reverse pivot. Well, let me tell you what a reverse pivot actually is. A reverse pivot is when you actually pivot off your trail foot, and that for most amateurs actually gets them to bring the club from the outside and hit that dreaded slice. So for those of you who are really struggling with ball striking and a slice, understanding how the spine moves is very, very critical.